Most people think the memory lapses that come with age are just something that happens to you. They're not. Every night while you sleep, if you sleep deeply enough, your brain runs a biological cleaning program. It physically flushes out the toxic proteins that accumulate during the day. The exact proteins that researchers link directly to Alzheimer's disease and accelerated memory loss. That system is real. It has a name. And in 2024, for the first time ever, scientists at Oregon Health and Science University watched it working live, inside the brains of human patients during neurosurgery. Here is the part that stopped me when I first read the study. That cleaning system only switches on when you reach deep, restorative sleep. The kind most people over 60 are simply no longer getting. And if it doesn't run, those proteins don't leave. They build up, night after night, year after year. The foggy mornings, the names that won't come, the conversation you were just in the middle of and then lost. That is not inevitable aging. That is a cleaning system that isn't running the way it should. Tonight, I'm going to show you 3 drinks, each one targeting a different biological reason your brain isn't getting that deep cleaning sleep, and the exact protocol for each. Not supplements, not expensive products. Real, accessible, evidence-backed beverages that work with your brain's own biology. But before I go further, quick question for you. When you wake up in the morning, does your mind feel sharp straight away, or does it take a while to clear? Just write sharp or foggy in the comments. I read every single one, and your answer tells me what to make next. My name is Dr. Luca. I work in the field of brain health and cognitive aging, and what we're going to cover today is grounded in peer-reviewed research, including a landmark 2024 study that changed how neuroscientists understand what happens inside an aging brain every single night. Let me give you the biology, not the textbook version, the version that actually makes this stick. You know how your house looks perfectly fine during the day, but if you never cleaned it, never vacuumed, never wiped the benches, never took out the rubbish, eventually things would start going wrong in ways you couldn't ignore. Your brain works exactly like that. Every time a neuron fires, every thought, every memory, every conversation, it produces metabolic byproducts. Waste, specifically fragments of proteins called amyloid beta and tau. These are the same proteins that, when they accumulate, form the plaques and tangles that researchers associate with Alzheimer's disease. Now, your brain does have a rubbish removal system. It's called the glymphatic system, a network of channels running alongside your brain's blood vessels, through which cerebrospinal fluid flows like a slow, powerful current, sweeping that debris out of the brain and into your body's broader detox pathways. Here is what most people never hear. That system doesn't run during the day. Research published in the journal Current Opinion in Physiology confirmed that glymphatic activity is dramatically lower during wakefulness and surges powerfully during deep, slow wave sleep. Stage 3 sleep. The deepest stage. Think of it this way. It's like your council's rubbish trucks. They don't run at peak hour when the streets are busy. They come through at night, when everything is quiet, when the roads are clear. The quieter the night, the more efficient the clean. And here is the uncomfortable truth for most Australians over 60. Deep slow wave sleep, the stage where your glymphatic system is most active and where memory consolidation happens, declines significantly with age. It gets shorter, it gets interrupted more easily. And for many older adults, it barely happens at all. A 2024 clinical study confirmed that overnight glymphatic clearance actively removes Alzheimer's biomarkers, including amyloid beta from the brain into the bloodstream during sleep. What that means in plain terms, every night is a biological opportunity for your brain to export the proteins associated with cognitive decline. The question is whether you are giving your brain the conditions to actually do that work. The 3 drinks I'm about to walk you through each address a different reason that deep cleaning sleep isn't happening. Together, they create the conditions your brain needs. Let's start with the one that surprised me most, because it's been sitting in every supermarket in Australia the whole time. Drink number 1 is Tart Cherry Juice. Not regular cherry juice, not cherry cordial, not cherry-flavoured anything. Specifically, Montmorency Tart Cherry Juice, pressed from the Prunus cericis variety. And the research behind this particular drink for sleep quality in older adults is genuinely remarkable. Let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret is 67 years old, a retired school librarian from the Mornington Peninsula. For years she'd been waking at 2 or 3 in the morning, unable to get back to sleep. She wasn't anxious. She wasn't in pain. Her mind just wouldn't stay quiet. By mid-morning she was foggy. By the afternoon she was struggling to recall words she'd known her whole life. Her GP had ruled out everything obvious. Nobody had mentioned her melatonin levels. I'll come back to Margaret in a moment. Here's the science. A controlled clinical trial examining older adults with insomnia found that participants who consumed Tart Cherry Juice experienced an increase in total sleep time of up to 84 additional minutes compared to placebo. Objectively measured, not self-reported, sleep efficiency improved from approximately 77% to 84%. That's a meaningful, quantified shift in how well the brain uses its time in bed. Why does this happen? 3 mechanisms. First, Montmorency tart cherries are one of the only food sources that contain a physiologically meaningful quantity of natural melatonin. Your body doesn't have to manufacture it from scratch. It's being delivered directly. Second, tart cherries contain tryptophan, the amino acid precursor to both serotonin and melatonin. This means the drink is simultaneously supporting your brain's own hormone production pathway, not just bypassing it with an external source. Third, and this is the piece most people miss, tart cherries are extraordinarily rich in anthocyanins. These are the deep red pigments that function as potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidant agents inside brain tissue specifically. We'll come back to why that matters when we talk about the system connecting all 3 drinks. Now, why does this matter specifically for people over 60? Because melatonin production drops by as much as 70 to 80% between the ages of 20 and 70. Your pineal gland, the small structure deep in the brain responsible for melatonin production, becomes progressively less active with age. Less melatonin means a disrupted circadian rhythm. A disrupted circadian rhythm means shallower sleep. Shallower sleep means less glymphatic activity. Less glymphatic activity means more overnight protein accumulation. A 2025 systematic review evaluating 7 interventional studies on tart cherry consumption confirmed significant improvements in sleep duration, sleep efficiency, and sleep onset latency. 3 of those studies used objective measurement tools, not questionnaires. Back to Margaret. She started 240 ml of pure, unsweetened Montmorency tart cherry juice 35 minutes before bed. Within 2 weeks, she was sleeping through to 5 or 6 a.m. Within a month, she told her daughter, for the first time in years, that she felt like herself in the mornings again. The protocol: 240 ml, about 8 fluid ounces of pure, unsweetened Montmorency tart cherry juice, 30 to 45 minutes before bed. If cost is a factor, 2 tablespoons of tart cherry concentrate mixed into water produces a comparable effect. If you're monitoring blood sugar, check with your GP. There are natural sugars here worth being aware of. One question before we move on. Have you ever tried tart cherry juice for sleep? Just write yes or no in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how many people watching already know about this one. Drink number 2 has been used in traditional medicine for over 3,000 years. And it's only now that modern science is beginning to explain exactly why it worked all along. Golden milk, warm turmeric milk, with a very specific ingredient that most people leave out, and without which the whole thing is almost useless. I'll tell you what that ingredient is in a moment. First, let me explain the biology of why this matters for your brain. Imagine your neurons are like high-end electronic components inside a precision instrument. Neuroinflammation, chronic low-grade inflammation inside the brain, is like a constant low-level electrical interference running through that system. Not enough to blow anything out all at once, but enough to cause progressive damage over years and decades. Enough to slow processing, enough to disrupt the connections between memory circuits, enough to accelerate the exact changes that lead to cognitive decline. The active compound in turmeric is curcumin, and curcumin does something extraordinary that most anti-inflammatory compounds simply cannot do. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. Your brain is protected by one of the most selective filtration systems in the human body. Most substances, including most medications and most nutrients, cannot pass through it. Curcumin is one of the very few plant-based molecules with confirmed access directly into brain tissue, where it can actually do its work. What does it do there? It suppresses inflammatory signaling pathways, specifically NF-κB activation, which drives the chronic neuroinflammation associated with cognitive aging. It reduces oxidative stress on neurons. And it supports BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that promotes the survival and growth of neurons. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for your brain cells. Now here's the study that made me want to include this in tonight's protocol. A randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial published in the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry measured the effects of bioavailable curcumin on memory in adults without dementia over 18 months. The curcumin group showed a 28% improvement in memory test performance. The placebo group showed no meaningful change, and critically, brain imaging in the curcumin group showed measurably reduced accumulation of amyloid plaques and tau tangles. Not just feeling sharper, structural protection, biological evidence. Now, the ingredient most people leave out: black pepper, a pinch, non-negotiable. Curcumin on its own has extremely poor bioavailability, meaning your body struggles to absorb it efficiently from the gut. Piperine, the active compound in black pepper, enhances curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. Without that pinch of pepper, you're getting a fraction of the benefit. The warm milk base, whether dairy or a fortified plant alternative like oat or almond, provides tryptophan and casein. Casein breaks down slowly and triggers gentle calming signals in the brain. You're supporting the melatonin pathway again, compounding the effect of the Tart Cherry Juice if you're using both. Here's something I want you to sit with for a moment. How many mornings do you wake up and feel like it takes your brain longer than it should to get going? Like there's a lag between opening your eyes and actually feeling present? Write the number of minutes in the comments. How long does it take you to feel properly awake? Just a number. I want to see what's normal for the people watching this. The protocol. Warm 1 cup of your preferred milk. Add half a teaspoon of turmeric powder, a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon, a small pinch of ginger powder, and, critically, a tiny pinch of black pepper. Sweeten lightly with raw honey if needed. Drink 30 to 45 minutes before bed, while the warmth itself begins signaling your nervous system toward rest. 2 weeks of consistent nightly use is where the evidence shows measurable improvements beginning to accumulate. This is not a one-night fix. It is a nightly investment in the structural integrity of your brain over months and years. Keep that in mind, because the third drink is the one that unlocks everything else. The third drink targets something that the first two don't directly address. And without tackling it, the other two can only do so much. I'm talking about cortisol, and what it's doing to the sleeping brain of most Australians over 60. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert is 71. He spent 30 years as a civil engineer in Brisbane, sharp as a tack his whole career. After he retired, something changed. Not dramatically, gradually. He'd lie down at 10 p.m, exhausted, and lie there until midnight. He'd finally fall asleep, then wake at 3 a.m. with his mind already running. He'd be up for an hour, sometimes two. By morning, he felt like he'd barely slept at all. Doctors found nothing wrong. His wife said he just couldn't switch off. He was right. That's exactly what was happening. His cortisol wasn't switching off. Here's the biology. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. In a healthy circadian rhythm, it peaks in the early morning to help you wake up and then steadily declines throughout the day, hitting its lowest point at night to allow deep sleep to occur. This arc, high in the morning, low at night, is the hormonal foundation of your entire sleep-wake cycle. In many older adults, that arc is broken. Chronic stress, physical pain, financial pressure, loss, loneliness, the accumulated weight of decades of living, keeps cortisol elevated into the evening. And elevated evening cortisol directly suppresses melatonin production, keeps the nervous system in a state of low-level alertness, and prevents the brain from entering slow-wave sleep, which means the glymphatic cleaning system never gets its window to run. Tart Cherry Juice can deliver melatonin. Golden milk can reduce inflammation. But if your cortisol is elevated at 10 p.m., neither of those can fully override the hormonal brake that's stopping you reaching deep sleep in the first place. That's where ashwagandha comes in. Ashwagandha, specifically the KSM-66 standardized root extract, is one of the most rigorously studied adaptogenic compounds for cortisol regulation. A 2019 randomized controlled trial published in the journal Nutrients found that adults experiencing chronic stress who took standardized ashwagandha extract showed significant reductions in serum cortisol alongside measurable improvements in sleep quality. A separate study specifically in adults aged 65 to 80 confirmed improved sleep quality, increased morning alertness, and better quality of life scores. And in adults with mild cognitive impairment, a 12-week trial showed improvements in both working memory and general memory with ashwagandha supplementation. The mechanism is specific. Ashwagandha's active with analyte compounds appear to modulate GABA receptors in the brain. GABA is your primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, your brain's off switch. When GABA signaling is strong, the nervous system quiets. Anxious thought patterns slow down, muscle tension drops, and the body can transition into sleep. Ashwagandha supports this GABA pathway without the dependency or side effects of pharmaceutical sleep aids. Chamomile works through a related mechanism. Apigenin, the primary bioactive compound in chamomile, also binds to GABA-A receptors, producing a gentle calming effect that has been documented for centuries and confirmed by modern pharmacology. Together in 1 cup of tea, these two compounds create a layered, multi-pathway intervention against the cortisol pattern that is the single most common reason older adults can't reach slow-wave sleep. Robert started the tea. Within a week, he was falling asleep before 10:30. Within 3 weeks, he stopped waking at 3 a.m. 6 weeks in, he told me it was the first time in years he woke up not dreading the day. I want to ask you something directly. Have you ever lain in bed exhausted, genuinely tired, but unable to get your mind to stop? If that's you, write switch off in the comments, because that is elevated evening cortisol, and it is absolutely addressable. The protocol: steep 1 chamomile tea bag in 240 ml of hot water for 5 to 7 minutes. Add half a teaspoon of ashwagandha root powder or open 1 400 to 600 ml capsule of KSM-66 standardized ashwagandha extract and stir the contents into the tea. A small drizzle of raw honey is fine. Drink 30 to 60 minutes before bed. The warmth activates your parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest mode, while the apigenin and withanolides begin their cortisol-modulating, GABA-supporting work. Before we bring all 3 drinks together into a complete system, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell if you haven't already. We publish a new video every day, and this is the kind of evidence-based content you'll want to catch early. Now let me show you how these 3 drinks work as a complete system. Because the real power isn't in any one of them. It's in how they each address a different biological requirement for glymphatic function. Your brain's overnight cleaning system needs 3 things to run properly. It needs you to reach deep, slow-wave sleep, because glymphatic flow surges at this stage and is minimal during light or interrupted sleep. It needs adequate hydration, because cerebrospinal fluid is water-based, and mild dehydration by bedtime impairs its circulation through the brain's cleaning channels. And it needs a low inflammatory burden, because neuroinflammation increases the metabolic debris load your glymphatic system has to clear, while simultaneously impairing the clearance pathways themselves. Map those 3 requirements against the 3 drinks. Tart Cherry Juice, through its melatonin and tryptophan content, supports the hormonal signaling that drives you into deep, slow-wave sleep. It is the signal. Golden milk, through curcumin and its anti-inflammatory compounds, reduces the neuroinflammatory load and protects the neural architecture the glymphatic system is working to preserve. It is the shield. Ashwagandha and chamomile tea, by lowering evening cortisol and activating GABA pathways, removes the hormonal interference that stops you transitioning out of light sleep into the restorative stages where cleaning actually happens. It is the switch. Signal, shield, switch. You don't need to drink all 3 every night, though you can. Start with whichever addresses your most pressing issue. Trouble staying asleep and waking foggy? Start with the Tart Cherry Juice. Chronic inflammation or family history of cognitive decline? Start with the golden milk. Can't switch your mind off at night? Start with the Ashwagandha Chamomile Tea. A few additional principles that amplify everything these drinks are doing. Timing matters. The 30 to 60-minute window before sleep is when these compounds are most bioavailable and most aligned with your natural hormone cycle. Too close to sleep, and you may not absorb the full benefit. Much earlier, and the effect fades before your deepest sleep phase. Hydration during the day. Your glymphatic system runs on cerebrospinal fluid. Mild dehydration, which is extremely common in adults over 60, who often lose their sense of thirst, reduces fluid volume and impairs clearance. Aim for consistent water intake throughout the day so you're not starting from a deficit at bedtime. Sleep position. Research has suggested that sleeping on your side may optimize glymphatic drainage compared to lying flat on your back, due to improved cerebrospinal fluid flow patterns. If you're a back sleeper, a slight lateral tilt with a pillow may be worth experimenting with. Evening light exposure. Blue light from phones, tablets, and overhead lighting after dark suppresses melatonin production, directly counteracting what the Tart Cherry Juice and golden milk are working to support. Even dimming your lights an hour before bed meaningfully protects the hormonal environment these drinks are trying to create. The drinks work. They work better when the environment around them supports the same biology. Let's land this clearly. Your brain is not passively declining. Every single night, it has a biological opportunity to clean itself, to flush out the proteins associated with memory loss and cognitive decline. A sophisticated infrastructure exists for exactly this purpose, and you have the ability, starting tonight, to support that infrastructure with real, accessible, evidence-backed tools. Drink 1 Tart Cherry Juice. 240 ml of pure Montmorency. Tart Cherry Juice, 30 to 45 minutes before bed, restores melatonin signaling, drives deeper, longer, more efficient sleep. Opens the window for your brain's cleaning system to run. Drink 2 Golden Milk. Warm turmeric milk with black pepper. Do not skip the pepper, ginger and cinnamon. Delivers curcumin across the blood-brain barrier. Reduces neuroinflammation. Protects the neurons your glymphatic system is working to preserve. Builds protection with consistent nightly use over weeks and months. Drink 3 Ashwagandha and Chamomile Tea. 1 chamomile tea bag plus 400 to 600 ml of KSM 66 ashwagandha extract 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Lowers evening cortisol, activates GABA pathways, turns off the noise so your brain can actually get to work. Here is your challenge for the next 2 weeks. Pick one, just one, whichever matches your biggest sleep challenge. Make it tonight. Drink it consistently for 14 nights. And pay attention in the mornings. Is the fog lifting faster? Are names coming more easily? Does your thinking feel sharper earlier in the day? Your brain gives you feedback when you give it the right conditions. The skill is being present enough to notice it. One last question before I go. Of these 3 drinks, which one are you going to try first? Write 1, 2, or 3 in the comments. I read every single one, and it genuinely helps me understand what's working for the people watching this. If this video added something real to how you think about protecting your brain, hit the like button. It helps this reach other Australians who need it. Subscribe and join a community of seniors who are serious about staying sharp, staying independent, and aging well. And if someone in your life is struggling with sleep or noticing changes in their memory, share this with them. Not because it's a cure, but because this information is too important to keep to yourself. Take care of your brain. It's been taking care of you your whole life.